50 miles from here, that's supposed to have artifacts of ancient Greek and ancient Egyptian society right here. And this could be a precursor to why the Cahokians, as this society turned out, why the Cahokians started to build a fortress around them because of the...
And give me the bottom line, though. Let's tease the people in their cars. They're not switching over to Franco-Pena entertaining. Why? What's the rub? What's the sex in the file here? Are you saying that, like, we had Egyptians in Cahokia? Or what?
Pre-Cahokia, about 4,000 years ago.
Are you going to tie this into, like, UFOs, like it was some sort of extraterrestrial intelligence that spread pyramid building all across? Give me something here, Lynchy.
Okay, there are artifacts in this cave, which the guys were talking about, where they have what looks like to me a reptilian person with a safer and side by side.
Now we got lizard people. That I can tell. Jesus ain't running the planet yet, Smarter. You've got to get out to the real world better. It has been making some beautiful things. 97.1 FM talk. And the pyramid builders, whoever those people may have been, in ancient Egypt, and there's a tomb in Illinois where you have found artifacts which links the two up. Is that the basic premise here?
The basic premise is that during a certain time period in Mesopotamia or the Mediterranean, there was a big controversy of power. So the people who did not want to stay fled with their artifact.
Oh, wait a minute. This is bigger than I thought. You're telling me that there was a migration from ancient Egypt to Illinois.
Yeah, with Greeks and Romans.
And when would this have been?
That's a good question. Harry will say, I want to say about 1,000 plus years ago, but that may be maybe even older than that. And they started a series of trade, and they came up the Mississippi, actually drew maps of the Mississippi, and came up the Mississippi, and built a settlement.
The skeptic, the prevailing view would say there was no one here prior to 1492, with the exception of maybe the Vikings, other than Native Americans.
Right, and it's possible, it is very probable that the artifacts that are found in Illinois, not 50 miles from St. Louis, could contain a piece of history that's been totally obliterated over time, because these people must have died out and communications been severed. And then the Cahokian Indian rose out of power, and there was always some question on why they continued to build a fortress around their city when they were the largest city and the largest military in the Midwest. So the situation is what were they going to defend themselves from? Maybe it was return of a Greek or Egyptian.
Even the historian you had on from Umsel said it's a mystery why the Cahokians had on this defensive position, continued in the middle of nowhere.
Their religion was based upon what we find in
today in Cahokia, you can see why they have a defensive position like that. That makes perfect sense, you know.
But the other thing is that ancient Egyptian mummies, the mummies in Egypt had caffeine or nicotine in them from cigarettes, from tobacco. They also ate chocolate. And the only where you can get these products is from America or South America. So there must have been a trade route at one time while Egypt
Would like Michael Shermer agree with you that they had nicotine and caffeine in their system?
The evidence from the autopsies of the mummies is flat there, but they think it was an overroute from China. And so China was going down to South America and going back the other way.
Let's talk to Harry here. Harry, thanks for being with us today.
How you doing?
Doing very well, appreciate it. So, would Lynch and I...
Here's Harry.
Do you agree that's basically what we're talking about?
Pretty much a quick study on that. But let me just say that, don't forget, right across the river from Cahokia is St. Louis. And the town square of St. Louis is also built on a series of very huge mounds that the French destroyed several centuries ago.
Damn French. Well, tell us your story about this tomb in Illinois.
It's about, I would say, 65 miles east of Cahokia and south of Highway 50.
Okay.
And it sure looks like any of the mound cultures that are on the tangent river systems that worship the sun and utilize what we call today the circle cross or medicine wheel are directly
we're talking about gold artifacts. We're talking about something carved out of stone.
Correct. All of the above, yes. Marble, dolomite marble.
It doesn't exist. Dolomite marble does not exist in the Midwest.
No, not at all. And there's actually, I've had several of the marble items checked by marble specialists, and they all say the same thing as Carrara marble from Italy. And the main medium of the stones is a black stone with fossils, indicative fossils in it, and also pyrite flakes embedded in it. And we trace that back to a place in Italy known as Lavagna. The Romans used it as chalkboards or blackboards. That's kind of what the word Lavagna means, is blackboard.
So how old, I'm trying to say, when were these things put into the ground in Illinois?
2,000 years ago.
So what happened? I already know the story, but what happened in Mesopotamia? What happened in the Mediterranean about that time?
Well, there was a big power struggle between Octavian and Mark Antony, and we all know, well, I imagine a lot of people don't know about the Battle of Actium, which was the last showdown. Pretty much Octavian had the land troops, and Antony had the fleet, and
Taylor had the books.
but actually Octavian did have a great general, a great naval sea captain, but when Mark Antony fled with Cleopatra and went back to Alexandria, it took Octavian a year to get down there because he had to march his troops over the Hellespont, down through Judea, etc. And so she had a year to plan all this. And evidently her family steamer with many of the artifacts and the museum pieces that they had at that time were all whisked out of Alexandria. And actually how they got out of Alexandria would be speculation, but it appears from the text on the stones, which is an archaic form of Latin for the most part, and there's also some Numidian, some North African, whatever you want to call it, and they went to a sea harbor town in Lower Iberia, which is modern-day Spain, called Cadiz, and from there whisked it over to the mainland of North America.
Okay, so for people just joining us, obviously you know it's Paranormal Tuesday, and Dr. Lynch is here, we have Harry Hubbard here, and we're talking, this really is fascinating though, and what the gentleman here are maintaining is that there's a tomb in Illinois, over against by Effingham basically, and that there are artifacts in it, 2,000 years old, that are from parts of Europe and in other parts of the world that is not Effingham, and so what that basically says is that, forget Columbus, forget the Vikings, that someone 2,000 years ago made the trek across the Atlantic, or bigger, and lived here and put these things in some kind of a burial chamber. If you have questions, which how could you not, call 314-969-9797, 866-455-9797. Let's start things off with Dave. Dave, what do you think, and I'll give you that one, but what do you think about these guys who are saying that people crossed the Atlantic 2,000 years ago and deposited stuff on some farm in Illinois? Dave, or Harry, or Lynch, what do you think about that? That somewhere,
We have the artifacts forensically tested, and they test out to like 1,800 plus years old, 1,600 plus years old, and some of the artifacts actually have a date on them, and it's dated in Roman time. The Romans dated their time beginning in 753 BC, which is when Romulus founded the city of Rome on the Capitoline Hill.
And so at the bare minimum, if someone hoaxed this, they took priceless artifacts and buried them in some unknown place in Illinois for a really stupid reason.
Well, they must have been lost. So that's also the thing I can figure. But we also have, it is my speculation that many of the artifacts were 2,000 years old 2,000 years ago, and they were just brought over here. And the text that reads on the stones, which we have available, different decipherment tapes, we have hours and hours and hours of video, and it's all letter by letter, word for word, and you can see literally hundreds of artifacts from this tomb in Illinois on our webpage, which is IllinoisMysteryCave.com.
Well, let me ask you this, Harry. I asked Lynch this in the beginning of the show, since Paranormal Tuesday. Is paranormal enough that some people crossed, the seas 1,000, 2,000 years ago?
Yeah.
But what is the very outside weirdness off the really goofy crapometer where someone would look at you and say, oh, I'm going to call you a liar to your face, Harry. What is the illogical, perhaps, extension of this? How weird could this thing have gotten?
It's really weird. There's strange animals that don't exist anymore. We have tablets that have elephants, lions, tigers, wolverines. But strangely enough, I have not seen any of the stones that had any buffalo on them, or beaver, which is something that I would say should be on there, but I haven't seen
and southern Illinois, and aliens with big mammary glands. You know what would be really cool, though, to bust this whole thing open, is if you dug down and you found like an 8x10 glossy of burnt concrete.
Dave Glover. This is the Dave Glover Show. Dave Glover Show.
5:46 here, Paranormal Tuesday, the Dave Glover Show. One of my very favorite days. I'm always excited. Like on Monday, I'll go like, what are we going tomorrow? Channel says Paranormal. I'm like, oh, excellent, because it's just the money. It's going to cost a little bit. And today, you know, he delivered. He said, I got a really great one for you, and it's true. He's been hot. He has been hot. He's been on fire. We have Harry Hubbard here, also known as the Illinois Tomb Man. What we're talking about is a tomb in Illinois that Lindsay is like 100 yards long or so, only about 65 miles away from here, that contains artifacts from anywhere between 2,000 and 4,000 years ago that somehow made their way here no later than 2,000 years ago from Italy and Egypt and all these things, and perhaps contain hieroglyphs of aliens and things like that. Now, Harry, let me ask you this. I tend to ask this question of Liz every single Tuesday, and that is, if this has any truth to it at all, why isn't Tom Brokaw leading with this on the nightly news?
The site has been embroiled in controversy for years because the person who made a rediscovery in 1982 and started pulling out all of the artifacts that we have today, and they were sold all over the world. And the main people who were purchasing them were museum designers, high-end artifact collectors, antique dealers. As a matter of fact, several of the men who designed and built the Cahokia Museum have major collections of this, and they are just waiting in the limelight. So when it does come to the forefront, they're going to have to jump on everyone to redesign everyone's museum all over again.
Now, see, I would think that like Discover or any of these magazines would at the very minimum be doing an article on this and saying, could this possibly be true?
That's what we would hope. We have only come out of the woods like a month ago. And the person, like we say, the person who initially started bringing the artifacts out in 1982 began to sabotage the project, doing this and that, and he didn't want his glory hole to dry up because as soon as someone else would have taken over, he would his great friend anymore.
And who's this dude? Who's the guy?
His name is Russell Burroughs.
Burroughs?
Yeah. He actually lived in Albany, and he purchased a metal detector back in the early 80s, and this site is actually printed about in several treasure guides having to do with Illinois, Indiana, or even the United States Treasure Atlas, and he just correlated the two different treasure atlases, crisscrossed them, and went there into the local township, and some local people took him to the site, and then he began to pull out artifacts in April of 1982 and continued looting until like early 1990 or late 1989.
Well, Tom, it seems to me, Burroughs is being a big ass about this whole thing.
How about you? Those ever spoken on the radio, yes.
Let's talk to Jared here. Hello, Jared. Go ahead. Yeah, get a bad connection there. I guess what he's saying is that helping Helperton or whatever, if he could build Stonehenge, that someone could fake this, that you can buy stones and etch little things in them and, that kind of stuff. Well, I know the guys out of Rolla built an exact duplicate, what half the size of Stonehenge. Yeah, but they don't have sex with women, so that, they have lots of time on their hands. And I know that they have a very difficult time in getting those stones. We just use modern equipment because there's no way they could have taken the time to figure out. We just use modern equipment to build the one down at Rolla. So in this case, since we're dealing with those artifacts, we're dealing with stone cuttings, and we're not dealing with something that's Mesoamerican
did. I used earth resistivity. After nothing else works in southern Illinois, there's a high iron content in the clay soil, and so things like GPR, electromagnetic conductivity, they don't work very well. They don't go down very much unless you're on bare sandstone, and even then, GPR, for instance, doesn't work very well over a rough terrain. So we use earth resistivity, and the earth resistivity shows that there are large rooms under the ground, tunnel systems, and sandstone, which caves do not naturally occur in sandstone.
Now, is this all on this Burroughs guy's property?
No, he never had permission to go on the property. He was just going on it at will.
So whose property is it?
Pardon me?
Who owns the property?
The gentleman that owns the property lives in Belleville, or Bellevue, whatever that town is.
Yeah, Belleville.
Yeah.
So let's get a bunch of people together and buy it. You know, I mean, really, come on, we'll find this jackass in Belleville. We'll buy it. You know?
Well, that's you are dealing with. I'm not trying to fight it. You're dealing with a different mentality when it comes to certain areas in southern Illinois.
Belleville people are crazy.
So I can only be as polite as I possibly know how.
So once again, what's that website? Your website?
IllinoisMysteryCave.com. And my email is in the contacts list, in the contact section there. And the website is very large, it's like 25 megs. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of artifacts pictured. I have gold artifacts. There are many decipherments on there. There are also several that haven't been deciphered, so anyone can try their hand. Anybody who's into Numidian or ancient Berber, whatever you like to call it, archaic Latin, Egyptian glyphs, you can win prizes. It's quite an array.
Cool stuff. Well, why have you on again? Because this piques my interest very much. Harry, thanks very much.
Well, I'm available to you anytime, sir.
All right. Very good. I cut him off. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to do that. Wow, that was something else.
Good job, Lynn.
Was it me or did he say he didn't want the glory hole to dry up?